I will start with you. I'll throw my hands up. I don't want lots of kids, not for any sense of moral purpose to the world, just because I find them really annoying. But is it irresponsible to have loads of kids? We've got enough people, haven't we?
Globally, on average, we're having about 2 children per woman. That's come down from 4 or 5 50 years ago. So, of course, there are people having loads of kids, and some of those are choosing to, and some of those are not yet in a position to choose. Great if those who aren't in a position to choose, mostly in sub-Saharan Africa, got more access to contraception. But roughly where we are as a human race right now is on the low side somewhat. There's still a lot of population growth to go through the system, because people are living longer and fewer children, thank goodness, are dying. But with 2 and falling in many parts of the world well below 2, you're going to have a big population decline in many, many countries. And in the UK, we're already feeling labour shortages despite sluggish growth and big immigration. So
we need to get more active in the bedroom in order to plug our economic gaps. I'm going to throw it over to you, Donnachadh McCarthy. Now, I suppose you, as a climate columnist, I mean, you're dead against the idea of massive continued population growth and reproduction, because eventually we'd have to build on the green belt, wouldn't we?
Well, it's nothing to do with the green belt. It's actually got to do with the survival of humanity, if you like. We are looking over the last since I was born, population's gone from 3 billion to 8 billion, a increase of 5 billion. What is that? What has been the price of that? We have lost 50% of our soil. We need soil for food. We've lost 70% of nature in my lifetime. And the International Panel on Climate Change says the 2 biggest drivers of climate destruction are population growth and GDP growth. So unless we act on population and not avoid this 2 billion increase, we are facing an increasingly narrow window to actually avoid the worst aspects of climate destruction.
I suppose, Paul, I'll throw it back to you. I mean, a massive turn-off, and indeed, therefore, a contraception, could well be that the idea, if we get it into people's heads, that if you now do reproduce, you will be destroying the planet and killing everyone on it.
Well, I think the old debate between Malthusians and anti-Malthusians was the Malthusians said, ooh, another mouth to feed, and the anti-Malthusians said another pair of hands to help. And, of course, these days, with education in so many parts of the world where previous generations were illiterate and now they're getting university educations, they will become problem solvers. It's another brain as well. I would agree if we were heading up for endless population growth, I would be concerned. But the fact is that population growth is trailing off, and there are large parts of many, many countries, from Russia to France and parts of East Asia, where population decline is meaning more and more of the countryside is effectively being abandoned and left back to nature.
Donnachadh, would you go for some kind of, by the way, I don't know if this still exists in China, I remember growing up and hearing this policy. As Chinese, you're only allowed 2 kids or something. Would you back a child limit?
No, of course not. That's actually been abandoned in China. China, as it got wealthier and women got educated, and women started having less kids. What we need is very simple. It's just that women have the human right to family planning, education and economic independence globally. If we guarantee that to every woman on the planet, the fertility issue will decrease, as Paul rightly said, and we actually won't face the devastation impacts of another 2 billion people to deal with on the planet that's already struggling with environmental and soil and food.
Donnachadh, as it currently stands, no person alive has come up with a really workable, quick fix to solving what you would regard as a climate crisis. I suppose the more people we pump on the planet, the more chance there is of solving that. You should be happy about it. Reproduce.
No, sorry. The best way of tackling climate change, the cheapest way, is every single person that is not added to the 8 billion already. And so what we need to be doing is restoring the cuts that the UK government has done to the United Nations Family Planning Agency, which has resulted in 14.5 million unwanted pregnancies. These are women in countries who are desperately poor, who deserve access to family planning, and we should help them to get that, not be shutting it down as the current government did and as Trump did. It's not right.
OK, well, I suppose I'll let you come back on that, Paul. I mean, OK, I take what Donnachadh was saying there about the family planning side of things. I think there's massive difficulties with that in certain cultures and in certain countries, frankly, where even if you built a family planning clinic, I'm not sure they would be allowed to necessarily go to it a lot of the time in some of those places. But I'm starting to wonder whether or not the climate lot is actually starting to look quite quite negative now, really. We're not allowed to drive anywhere. We're not even allowed to have unprotected sex anymore. I mean, grief, what's the point of living?
Well, I do agree with Donnachadh that it's very important we allow women to make their own choices. And there are countries where the fertility rate is 5 or 6, and it's fantastic that we're helping those countries. We should be helping them, and we should be helping them reduce their fertility rate. What worries me is that more and more countries are falling into the sub-replacement area and ending up with 1 or 1.5 children on average per woman. And that leads to very rapid ageing, huge pressure on public finances, and eventually population decline, which is going to be very problematic.